welcome to From Trigger to Transform podcast. I am your host and transformational coach, Coach Della Major. Once again, it's so exciting to have you to join me for another live episode. Look, we have been going throughout this series of talking about not only leaders and leadership and how we've been overcoming, but really this whole season is really being a season where we are empowering, where we are engaging, and where we ourselves as leaders. See, as leaders, we pour out so much, and we give and we give and we give, but we never have a platform where it's to the point where we get poured back into. And so, throughout this whole season and season 2, that's what we're doing, and we're not only just sharing individually, but we're bringing on guests who've had life altering events, who overcame them, who is now out there making impact, and then at the same time, really pouring back into not only the community, but also getting poured back into themselves. And so my guest that I'm going to have on today is just none other than Mr. Deric Durden. And I am so excited to have him on today. Look, I'm telling you, we are going to chat it up. We're going to be having some good things. And so I want you to get comfortable because the stories that we're going to be sharing on today is going to be none other than, as we say, creating that life of possibilities. And so let me introduce you to my guest, and I'm going to allow him to speak and share a little bit about himself. Hey, Deric, how you doing?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Why don't you share a little bit about yourself to my listening audience?
Well, my name is Deric Durden. I am now the CEO of Deric Durden LLC, in which I speak and also do podcasts internationally from United States, Bahamas, and all across, just to share my message into individuals in order so that they don't make the same mistakes that I made. And as we get further into the interview, I'm going to get deeper into this story, and we're going to really pour in and shed some light and really help some other people out.
I am quite sure about that. One of the things, the reason why this podcast is called From Trigger to Transform is because in my life altering situation, it took my husband when I was right at the pivotal point of dealing with 2 major health crises, asked me for a divorce, and I was left with an identity crisis issue. I didn't know what to do. I was stuck. Here it is, the person that should have been there to help me through. Now I'm just trying to figure out what do I do next with 2 children. And so when you think about those scenarios and you think about how you're going to function, yes, I was a leader at the church. Yes, we was counseling many married couples. We would call fire and ice. But even with all of that, yet still, I didn't understand who I was because all of everything that I did was tied up into that marriage. And so, I made a lot of decisions that was not great. But then one of the good things that I love about this is that it helped me to be able to see, wait a minute, let me take a step back and really tap into who I am and what my true potential is. And, that was the moment where I start sewing in. That was the moment where I start identifying who I was, how to maximize my fully God-given potential. And I believe that there was somebody else that's out there who had the same scenario that needed to know that, look, just because your situation was what you went through, it does not dictate your outcome. And so that's where From Trigger to Transform came from. And I'm really so excited about how we've been making an impact into other people's lives, especially leaders, women over 40, men over 40, young ladies in 30s who've been saying, you know what, until I heard your podcast, I really didn't identify to who I was. And so with that being said, I really want them to understand and to hear your story because it is such an amazing journey as to where you came from, to where you're going, and to what you have already done and where you've been. So, man of God, why don't you share a little bit about your journey?
Okay, just listening to you and what you just said, it seems it's something that comes to my mind is that when we're going through those trials and tribulations, we
Yeah,
can't our purpose. We're so
yeah.
busy on the circumstances that we can't look past that in order to get our vision where it needs to go in order for us to get to where we need to go. And so with that, I'm gonna go back to the beginning when I was growing up as a young man, young boy in South Dallas, who was raised by my grandmother, who was disabled. And this woman, she didn't have much, but she made it work. She was on food stamps. We were on WIC, all the supplements that come from the government. But not only that, she taught me the invaluable lessons that money can buy. At a young age, I was cooking my own breakfast. I was folding my own clothes, and because she couldn't help me, she taught me independence, and that's something that I've been able to carry with me from that point on in my life. And so, starting out with that, by me being raised by my grandmother, it's obvious that my mother and father wasn't there always in my life. And so that created a void within me because I had other brothers and sisters that were actually living with my parents. And so it made me feel neglected. It made me feel abandoned because in my mind, I was like, how do they get to live and y'all be so much a part of y'all life when I don't? But when you go through these things and you have hindsight, you can go back and say, God separated you. God put you aside because he knew it was something more, something special within you. But like I said, when we going through it, we don't really know that. Especially at that age, we just feel, filled with emotions, filled with things, and we have that traumatic experience that we hold it inside of us because we can't really understand it. And they say that God cannot reveal to you the entire story from the beginning because if it did, you wouldn't take the right steps in order to get there. And so
Ha.
those steps, one by one, situation by situation. And from elementary school, I was a student that was in talented and gifted classes. Went on to junior high school, became a star athlete, high school star athlete, graduated as a Texas scholar, and then the necessity or that void that was in me started to rear its ugly head again. So
Mm.
I got with the wrong crowd and trying to fill that void with things outside of myself, from females to the right having the friends and so-called friends at that point that I can look back at and say now, and really just going all the wrong paths, trying to find out as you go back to your identity. You're lost. You really don't have too much to gauge your identity off of, especially when the absence of your parents, because they are the people who really mold and have certain characteristics that you get your genes from that mold who you are as an individual, especially from the beginning. And so,
Right.
with that absence, it was still a big search. And so I got to the high school level. I started acting out. Star quarterback got kicked off the football team. Star point guard got kicked off the basketball team. And so now my association is not positive things like sports. That allegiance that I had in sports was now focused on gang activity. So now I'm hanging with individuals who are not doing the quote unquote right thing.
Right. Come on.
Anytime you get involved, and that is the power of association, anytime you interact or get involved with anybody, you inherit their situations. You inherit the situations that they put themselves in. And that led me to the situation in which I was at the club with with these same individuals that I'm talking about that I assume were friends. They got into this altercation with these other guys. I had nothing to do with the altercation. I actually broke up the altercation. And when we went out and hung out at our natural spot that we hang out at. And so the guys who they already had got into it with came to where we were. The situation blew up. An individual was fatally shot and didn't make it. And so I was took responsibility for the situation, uh, and ended up 10 years later, seeing the light again. Through that process, I built myself up. I read hundreds of books. I joined all type of programs, got closer to God, got a degree, and even became a competent communicator through Toastmasters, and even eventually became
Come on.
of education of Toastmasters.
Come on.
And so, in all those things that I was able to use to transform my mindset first, I was able to transform my life second, and now I'm able to apply these things to my life. And now I'm doing so many great things, not because of me, but because what was invested in me, how I invested my time, and the people who have seen who I am, and connected with me and continue to push me up to the next level, and I continue to grow and be better.
You know what? No one will really think that you can go through what they see when people hear situations like that. They quick to easily do this. We live in this cancer curse, this cancer culture. Everybody canceling everybody out. Nobody want to have association with anything. But the fact that you can go through what you went through, and even in spite of going through what you was going through, look how you excel even the more, where that sometimes we might not like the process, but the result, oh my God, but the result is just something that even takes us to a whole nother level of elevation. And so one of the things about this episode that we're talking about, we're talking about suffering with a smile. And we have a lot of people who go through so many challenges and situations, but yet still they have this fake smile, but they're not even, trying to tap into how they could be an overcomer. And understanding they allow that suffering to keep them stuck. And then what happens? Their self-confidence is impacted. They don't think that they can be able to do anything more, especially after going through a negative or even life-altering situation. And just thinking about that, what was your self-confidence like when you first went through your journey, and what's it like now?
I mean, initially, let's just talk about the word self-confidence.
Yeah, let's go.
When we look at that word, it's not about basically defining what it is. It's more about how do you get it. And we look at the word self-confidence, it just means to confide in oneself. The,
Mm-hmm.
the narrative that you tell yourself, the words or thoughts that you implant within yourself is what builds your self-confidence. What you say about your capabilities is what you totally live out. And so
Mm-hmm.
the self-confidence is, the question is, what is the narrative? What are the ideals? What are the ideals, or what is your self-image that
Mm-hmm.
you pour into yourself, and that's gonna dictate what you're capable of.
That's it.
And so for me, going back to my self-confidence back then, I think that it was less self-confidence and more arrogance.
Oh.
I was thinking I was able to do or be a certain thing, but because it was pointed in the wrong direction.
Ooh.
And so when I go back and I look at it, I was thinking that all the things that I could have been doing were things that were not productive, were not in line with who I truly am. It wasn't in line with my purpose. And sometimes it's not it was actually in the negative, quote unquote, what we thought was negative. The redirection in there is what brings us back to where we're supposed to be. A lot of times,
Mm.
a lot of times we detour ourselves. We stray off the path and we choose to go on a different path than what was really aligned for what our lives is. And those negative, quote unquote, negative or transformational situations are really us being realigned with where we're supposed to be. Because
Right.
in that, it's like it's it's when we find ourselves in those moments that we truly find ourselves.
Ha! I like that. When we find ourselves in the moments is when we truly find ourselves. And oh, that taps right into, we really don't think about, we really truly connecting with our inner self until we either get ready to go through a transformational change. And that transformational change is help you now to, like, okay, do you got some skin in the game? What you got? What's up? It start making you think about, wait a minute, who am I? And when you start thinking about who am I, you start thinking about, can I really endure? And so with that being said, I know that, you said 17 years, but was there ever any a point of time that you had that moment and you was like saying to yourself, you know what, you know what, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And then that right pivotal moment, you like, I get no, I'm gonna change the game.
To be honest, the moment was actually before I was actually sentenced.
Mm.
I was in the courtroom and she was saying, "Baby, sign for 22 years." At this time, I'm 19, so 20 years is a life sentence. It's more time than I've been alive. So for me, I couldn't do it. I couldn't accept that. And so in that process, there was a altering moment. Even the relationship with me and my mom got rocky in that moment because I didn't take her advice. But how can someone 19 years old sign their life away and sign for more time than they've been alive? It to me it wasn't feasible. It wasn't. Um, I felt in my spirit that that wasn't the choice for me, and so that was a very pivotal moment. And going through the process of actually stepping in, getting past the fear of what might happen, of all the stories that you
Yeah.
hear, all that, and actually stepping in there and being myself was okay.
All right.
I spent so much time trying to be somebody else that got me into the situation. Then I got into the situation and started actually being who I truly am. And I was accepted more for just being who I was. And that was one of those transformational moments, those aha moments where
Mm-hmm.
I should have just been doing this from the very beginning. And that was that moment where my eyes was open. I knew I could do it. And it was just a time where you just say, you know what? It's time for change. And that,
Talk about Toastmasters. Talk about Toastmasters and that journey, and what was that experience like when you finally was able to see the opportunity that you can really speak on platforms? What was that like?
and Toastmasters was another pivotal moment. It actually turned me into my purpose, connecting with other people and being able to talk in front of people and not be afraid and not say the ums and the uhs and learning all the techniques
Yeah.
that out of them came natural. I did my first speech and it was like a natural experience for me. And even in the evaluation of my speech, everybody was amazed. They were like, "Oh no, you couldn't. This couldn't be your first time." And it was actually my first time. And so, like finding your purpose, I heard Steve Harvey say one time, "Your purpose, your gift, is what you do the easiest with the least effort." Basically, what comes naturally for you.
Right.
What was implanted for me was to actually get up and speak. Ensuring it because and it's crazy how the quote unquote transformational time, because I wouldn't have a more such an impactful story if it wasn't for the process that I had to go through in order to transform and then be able to walk in the gift of speaking in order to make it all come together and have a full purpose and living in my passion.
Oh wow, that is so. You know what? I am so excited about this. This story, and that I'm so excited about your journey because why? It just really it opens the door of letting you know that in spite of what you go through, in spite of whatever the challenge is, that it does not dictate the outcome. And because we know that it does not dictate the outcome, those things that we keep internalizing or we internalize doesn't have to be. All you need to do is just be able to speak, and then you need to be able to reach out. So, what are some of the things that you can share that would help those who might be listening to us, really take away in a sense of how they too can be able to be transformed and move forward and really start moving towards the direction of their purpose?
Just listening to you say what you just said about the those challenging situations and the quote that comes to my mind, those challenges have to be what refine you, not define you.
Mm.
And so the key thing I know and understand is you have to take responsibility for why you are where you are. A
Oh,
lot,
that's good.
A lot of people become victims. Like for me, I could have been, oh, my friend snitched on me. This happened. The judge didn't like me. No, when I got in that situation, I said, you know what, Derek, if you wouldn't have did what you did or participated and did some of the action, because we don't normally get in those situations because one decision. Normally,
Right.
a continuous decisions that get us to that point. And so we have to first take responsibility for our actions. You know what? This might have happened, but I still had the opportunity to choose how I respond to that. And if my choices wasn't in line with what I'm supposed to be doing, then I have to take responsibility. That's first and foremost. Then next, once you take a responsibility, then now you have the power to change. Now that you see what you did wrong, now you can say, you know what, I did this wrong in the past. But if I make these decisions, if I hang out with these people, if I get into this association, or if I start um, networking with different things and people, that this is the outcome of my life because I've already seen what this side looks
Right.
like.
Right.
I see what this side looks like. I've been
Mhm.
so now let's go step on this side and let's see what this looks like because we already know the opposite of this is this. So our results gonna be the opposite because our actions gonna be opposite.
You know what? That's so good. So we talk about creating a life of possibilities. What's some possibilities you want to share?
My main possibility is just being able to, in my lifetime, the time I have left, I want to reach out and touch the lives of at least 1 million people.
Ah,
It's through speaking, if it's through books, if it's through my course, if it's no matter what form or fashion, if it's just on social media, whatever I can do, if I can touch the lives of 1 million people, because this is the saying that I always say:
come on.
you do not pay your debt to society inside. It's what you do once you come out. What you pour back into society, how you pay your debt to society. And for me, that's where I'm at. That's the possibility. Being if I can do that, then I've lived out my purpose and I became not only successful but significant. And that's what's more important to me.
You know, in this podcast, like I said, it's all about pouring in. It's all about coming up with strategies, solutions, and how it is that we can be able to help and individuals who maybe gone through a life altering event really rebuild and reset. And so you just heard not only one, but you heard two powerful transformational stories that is definitely one that you could take back on and that you can be able to see how in spite of whatever you've gone through, it's not about the situation, but it's about how you move forward and how you be able to bring about a change. And so, Deric, I want to thank you for being my special guest on this episode today. But I want people to know how to connect with you and what you all about, how they could connect with you. What is some of the ways that they do it? And if you got any books out, just share that information as well.
Okay. First of all, I'm very active on Facebook. My name is Deric Durden. Uh, Instagram. I'm on Snapchat, even TikTok. I have my own website, Deric Durden LLC. You can reach out to me there. And I'm just open to mentoring. I'm open to any type of speaking, whether it's church or you have some type of group. I'm just asking for the from trigger to transform family to just help me live out my purpose. And you can connect with me on all those different platforms. Uh, and just I'm of service. That's one thing that we learn in Toastmasters. You have to be of service. I am of service to whoever needs it. I am just trying to get out here and make a difference one person at a time. And
Ah,
anything, I want to thank you more than you thank me for just sharing your platform with me and opening up this opportunity to share. And because, like I just asked them, you have gave me the opportunity to walk in my purpose, and that
Well, you know what? It's always about, this is what this is all about. We're all about reset, rebuild, and look, I've been in those streets too, and I know what you mean. The only thing that's different between me is that I didn't do 17, but God just arrested me right before I got my mess. So I don't consider myself anything bigger, anything less. So with that being said, I want to thank you, Deric, for being my guest, my very special guest on my show, and I want to thank you so much for joining us on this week for another episode from Trigger to Transform podcast. Again, you can follow us on Facebook at Coach Della Major, on Instagram at Coach Della Major. And as I always share with you, click on that subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell so that you can be able to receive notifications and when we're going to have our next episode. And another thing, we want to hear from you. If it's something that was said on today's episode, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from your comments. Definitely leave a review on iTunes. But as a bonus, once again, I am sharing with you my 30-day a 30-day affirmation biblical declaration calendar that you can be able to go into the show notes and click on download. It is a free I am affirmation calendar. And look, I am telling you, it's a tool that I generated. It's something personal to me, but I'm telling you, it's going to be impactful. And at the same time, I'm quite sure that you're truly going to really enjoy that. And with that being said, I want to thank you, but don't miss out on opportunities again to be able to hear and when we're coming live. And thank you for listening, and see you again on another episode of From Trigger to Transform. I look forward to you again. Bye-bye.